My girlfriend borrowed my car and crashed it outside her ex's house. I told her ex he can keep her and the wrecked car. I, 29th male, met my girlfriend at a coffee shop. We literally bumped into each other. She spilled latte all over the suit I was wearing to an interview. She apologized profusely and offered to pay for the cleaning bill. I told her I was in a rush to get to my job interview, so just took her phone number and ran to my interview at the building next door. Throughout the entire interview, I was only thinking about her, especially the way dark hair accentuated her light blue eyes. I obviously did not get the job and was not sad about it. I walked out of the building and back to the coffee shop where she was still sitting. We met eyes from across the room, and that was that. 18 months later, Olivia, 27F, and I were inseparable. Sandy had this way of making me feel like nothing else in the world mattered. That's why I wasn't too broken up about the job interview or the suit. We did everything together: gym, movies, long drives, travel, binge-watching shows while drinking cheap beer. But over the last couple of months, I have started to notice the fire going out of her eyes. I figured it was just the end of the honeymoon phase of the relationship. 18 months was longer than usual anyway. Still, I tried to keep the romance alive by being as spontaneous as I could. Random acts of love, like showing up to her job with her favorite chocolates. Her co-workers were used to me showing up with things like this, and I would buy something for them to enjoy as well. I would have flowers wait near the door when she got home and did everything the florist recommended to keep them alive and beautiful as long as possible. I would also buy her gifts just because no special day required. But the harder I tried, the more distant she became. The cracks started to show. She started having girls' night out once a week, which I thought was completely healthy. I wanted to give her more space so she didn't feel smothered. I even started hanging out with my brother and my best friend once a week, so she didn't feel like I was sitting at home waiting for her to get back. And for a while, she seemed happier. Then, a few weeks later, the girls' nights became a more regular thing where she would stay out later and later. Then she needed to work later more often during the week. I was completely okay with giving her her space, but still something started nagging at me. She would come home 3 to 4 times a week after I had already gone to bed, and one night she came home when she thought I was asleep, and I could smell the faint odor of alcohol. The next day, I asked her where she had been, and she got very defensive for the first time in our relationship. She snapped at me and said she had to work late and that she had a very stressful project that the company needed completed soon. This was our first real argument, and the first time I had ever had her directly lie to me. Now I knew something was up and needed some hard proof. We had only been living together for the past 6 months and had not started sharing passwords or login details yet, so I had to wait until her phone was unattended. Olivia started taking longer showers and more time to get ready for her girls' nights, so I had plenty of time to look through her phone. I had glanced in her direction a few times and caught glimpses of her typing in her passcode, but still did not know it for sure. It took me 3 tries to get it right, but I was in. Since we had never shared passwords, she made no attempt to hide any of her conversations. What I saw made my blood run cold. My girlfriend borrowed my car and crashed it outside her ex's house. I told her ex he can keep her and the wrecked car. Update 2 and 3. She had been texting her ex, Sean, 28 million, throughout our entire relationship. For me, that was okay, since she had someone close to confide in. It started out with her sharing how happy she was to have found me. He would take hours to text her back and his responses would be short. But later, when we had moved in together, she started to vent to him about how she was worried we were taking things too fast. Now his responses came faster, and he seemed to have a lot more to say. The conversations later evolved into him giving her advice to spend more time away from me and spend time with friends. After a couple of weeks, he made his move. He invited her to events where they would not be alone, so it would not look suspicious, just friendly. Still, the timestamps showed me that these were nights when she told me that she was working late or hanging out with friends. More lies. The last 2 weeks they had been meeting up at his place. There was no mention of what they were doing there or who else had joined them, but the conversations the next day were full of, "I had fun last night. Can't wait to see you again." That was the nail in the coffin. I knew our relationship was over then, but the drama was only starting. She walked into the kitchen where I still had her phone open in my hand and the messages from him still visible on the screen. The last one read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I got something special for you." Her face went through every emotion, one right after the other, until she finally landed on anger. "How dare you go through my phone?" she screamed. I hadn't paid attention to the time, and she had already finished getting ready. "How long?" I asked her. She didn't respond, just looked at me with fury in her eyes. The sound of her sharp breathing was all that could be heard. Without a word, she grabbed my car keys and headed out the door. She wasn't stealing my car. Hers was in the shop, and I had agreed to let her borrow it tonight. She told me she was the designated driver. It is an old Honda that I was planning to replace with my next bonus check. I would have to replace it much sooner along with half of the things in my apartment. Update 3. I got a call from the police at around 3 a.m. I wasn't asleep yet anyway. My mind was still trying to process the betrayal. She had never seemed like that type of person. I thought we had an open and honest relationship. Oh, how wrong I was. The caller identified himself as Officer Chen from the local city police. He confirmed that my name was the same as the car they had found wrapped around a tree. I thought the worst had happened to Sandy. I was angry with her, and my heart was completely shattered, but I didn't wish anything bad to happen to her, not like this. Officer Chen said that the driver was fine, just had some minor scratches and bruises. She was cleared medically at the scene and arrested for DUI. His partner was transporting her to the jail at this time. He asked me if I could come out and remove any items I needed from the car. He gave me the address, and I quickly realized it was where her ex lived. I got an Uber and arrived in about 15 minutes. Sean looked scared when he saw me, but with the police present, he knew there was nothing I could do. He looked at me and arrogantly told me I needed to get my car off his property. According to Officer Chen, Sandy had been drinking with him for hours and asked him if she could stay with him until our breakup was finished and she could get a new place. That's when he told her that he wasn't interested in anything that serious. He said they were supposed to just be having fun, and that's why he never put pressure on her to leave me. In a drunken fury, she ran out of his house and tried to back out of the driveway. She confused the brake for the gas and reversed spun into a tree in the front yard, smashing it into the passenger side front door. This is the only reason she was not seriously hurt. The neighbors heard the crash and called the police. Luckily, Officer Chen had been down the street and was able to see her getting out of the driver's door. He placed her in custody and had EMS check her out before transporting her to the jail. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud when I heard the whole story. Sandy had a long legal road ahead of her, and Sean had an older model Honda as a tree decoration. My girlfriend borrowed my car and crashed it outside her ex's house. I told her ex he can keep her and the wrecked car. Final update. Sean looked at me with disgust and told me again to get the car off his property. I pulled out the title I had brought in case I would need it. I handed the title to Sean and said, "The car and Sandy are your problems now. Have fun." I walked away, still chuckling to myself, and down the street I ordered another Uber. The next morning I woke up to peace. I thought Sandy would call me to come get her out of jail. But no calls or texts. I took the day off to process everything that happened and started packing her personal items. I boxed up all the things in the apartment she had bought with her own money. At around 4 p.m., I heard a knock at the door. It was Olivia's father. This is a very large man who had been a police officer for 20 years before an on-duty accident forced him to retire early. I opened the door, and he gave me a disappointed look. I let him in, and we talked for a short time. Sandy had called them when she had sobered up and gotten a bond from a judge. If he was this angry, telling me the story, I could only imagine how angry he was when she called him. He was disappointed with how she treated me and disgusted with her drinking and driving. He offered to pay me for the destroyed car, which I quickly declined. I asked if we could have a clean break. I would give her belongings back and she would not ask for anything else. I don't want her to contact me for any reason ever again. He agreed and said he would make sure she stuck to that deal. He packed all of her belongings in his truck and refused to let me help. Before leaving, he took out a roll of cash and tried again to pay for the car. Again, I refused. He said anything else she had paid for or helped pay for I could keep to make up for everything. We shook hands and simply nodded goodbye. 1 year later, I had to buy another car. Decided to try one of these EVs and have been extremely satisfied with it. I never heard from Sandy again. Mutual friends told me she had gotten 6 months of probation and forced to go to 50 hours of AA meetings, 100 hours of community service, along with a $2,000 fine. She stayed with her father for the duration of the probation. A week after her sentencing, Sean had gone to her father's house to talk to Sandy and see if they could start a real relationship again. Sean's social media posts showed a swollen left side of his face for a few days after, and then a bruised eye for the next few weeks. I wasn't ever able to get closure or have that big fight, but last week I did get a letter in the mail from Sandy. In it, she took full responsibility for everything that happened. She said I was one of the best guys she had ever met, and she would have to live with the fact that she hurt and lost such an amazing person because of her own insecurities about commitment. She said she didn't expect me to respond, but if I ever wanted to tell her what a horrible person she is and what a horrible thing she had done, I had her new address. I put the letter in my desk drawer and read it from time to see if I want to respond. I probably won't, but it's a good lesson to me to not be so naive next time, and if someone starts to pull away from you, you need to get to the root of the problem before it all ends badly.